I'm just starting to record the webinar now, so you'll be able to view the YouTube video later on. Today's topic is school garden education for children experiencing behavioral and mental health challenges. We're joined by a really great team from Oregon. I'm going to go ahead and make our first introduction. We have Suzanne Briggs. She's our lead presenter, and she works with the Multnomah Education Service District students with emotional and mental health challenges. Suzanne has an extensive background in the local food movement, including starting farmers markets, teaching them the implementation of SNAP, advocating for state farm-to-school school garden legislation, and advising the OSU Center for Small Farms and Community Food System. Before Suzanne introduces her co-presenters, I actually just go over this slide really quickly, just housekeeping things. I'm going to go ahead and mute all of the participants just to reduce background noise so our presenters have everyone's full attention. If you'd like to make a comment or ask a question during the webinar, I welcome you to use the chat function in the right-hand control panel. If you access more of Slow Food School Garden resources, our website is listed there, as well as the link to find the webinar later on. Okay, so I just introduced Suzanne, who is going to go ahead and introduce Tony and Skylar, her co-presenters. Okay, Suzanne, you are on.
So thank you, Lauren. This is exciting that we are able to share what we're doing here in Portland, Oregon. So my co-presenters here are Joan Hamilton-Tolan, and she is the school psychologist and principal for Multnomah Education Service District, Alberta Creek, and Burlington Creek. For 21 years, she has been involved with mental health support programs for schools in a more structured setting so that the students have behavioral or mental health needs can achieve academic and behavioral successes. Has his OSU Master Garden certification. Yes?
I'm breaking up a little bit. Are you using the computer or the phone?
I'm using the phone.
Okay, we can hear you fine now. Actually, if you want to go ahead and
okay.
start Skylar again.
Does that work?
Yep, you sound great.
Okay, so Skylar Dinsdale has been farming for 35 years, has a general science education background, and has his OSU Master Garden certification. Skylar teaches sustainable gardening to students with emotional and behavioral needs. He is currently developing a unique garden curriculum that will specifically address the disabilities of his students while using the framework of STEAM, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Math. So I just want to take a moment to describe the Multnomah Education Service District. This organization provides a wide variety of programs and services on a regional basis. MESD has a direct relationship with each school districts in Multnomah County and beyond. The total enrollment of the 8 school districts is approximately 100,000 students. The MSD staff includes certified teachers, occupational therapists, speech therapists, educational assistants, and school nurses. The major areas of services that are included in the organization is school, health services, special education, alternative education, information technology, and outdoor school. The organization provides educational programs for hospitals, juvenile corrections, and specific schools for students with mental, physical, emotional, and behavioral challenges. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Joni, and she's going to tell you about the Creek and Burlington Creek schools, which started the Creek School Gardens program just 1 year ago.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joni Tolan, and I'm the principal for Alberta Creek and Behavioral Creek School, or Burlington Creek Schools. these are schools that are primarily for those students who have not had success in the general ed population. All our students have an individualized education plan. They're all on IEPs under special education. They're primarily within our schools because they are needing extra support and structure to get the success that we hope they will find within the school setting. We have students kindergarten through 21, and one of the things that we have found in the last year has been our Farm to School program, which we started last year. That program has been incredible, and our children and our students an opportunity to work out gardens. We have 2 different sites, so we have 2 different gardens. Give them an opportunity to maybe meet some of those needs that many of you already know about can be found through working in gardening programs. We have been highly successful at reducing behavior and helping students gain more positive, interactive, and communicative skills. It has been a great success just in the short little over a year that we've been working in this program. The Farm to School program has been was geared through Suzanne, who introduced us to Jerry Hunter, who is our Multnomah County Coordinator of Farms program that he runs as a farmer. He has come to our school and volunteered his time, as well as those of his volunteers, to support us in this work. And
Next slide, please.
we also have Tanya DeCruz, who is our speech and language pathologist. Tanya has been instrumental in helping with Skylar work with our students on pre-teaching the behaviors that we're looking for in our gardens, and helping model what has been successful. The students have been amazing at the thing we've seen. Skylar's going to share a little bit about specific students that he chose to give an example of the differences we've seen and the data that we've collected both before, during, and after our students have been working in our Farm to Schools program.
Okay, at this point, at this time, I'm going to just kind of introduce some of the techniques and education methods that we use in the garden. Can you go to the next slide, please, Lauren? Okay, so in the garden, we have had this wonderful partnership with Multnomah Crafts, and we have encouraged their volunteers. Mira Hayes, who's on the screen at this point, been coming to the gardens on a weekly basis and with our students. She's been incredible. So the partnership of this program is very important, and I think has really created the success for what we're doing and what we're seeing with the please. So one of the we're kind of feeling our way along on how we can really accomplish this goal. Next slide, please. The Creek students are complex and challenging for a variety of reasons. These reasons are not just learning disabilities, but also social and physical environmental impacts in their lives. We underestimate how the children are challenged by just being teenagers, by not feeling a sense of being mentally or physically safe in schools and homes, by being perceived as different, whether it is their race or gender or slow thinkers. There's a number of reasons why they feel different. And are often challenged because of their families living in chronic poverty. Our children are over 90% of them are on free or reduced lunches. So all of these triggers create a less opportunity for meaningful relationships with their peers and their adults. Next slide, please. To better understand our students, we want to share some common characteristics that we see in how they perform within the school system. Often we are thinking about how the brain works, and their brains may have poor executive functioning. Consequently, they are concrete, rigid, inflexible thinkers and have weak systems, which is how we regulate our emotions. Auditory processing is weak, but often is compensated by a stronger visual memory. Many students are more kinesthetic learners, which means that they like physical and learn through physical activity. Social communications is difficult. Our students are challenged with being able to initiate, sequence, and organize tasks. In addition, being alert and attentive can happen in short spurts. Next slide, please. But we're always sharing with the children many of the heroes that we have learned differently as well. One of those heroes is Temple Grandin, who is well known for her research on how to understand animal behaviors. Temple is autistic, and like many students on the spectrum, think if you are not aware of Temple's story, I read the movie Temple Grandin. It will change how you relate to Asian children. Next slide, please. So Tanya, who is our speech therapist, has helped us all develop very effective communication systems. And on this slide, I wanted to share some of those tools that we are using. Our top priorities is that the students feel safe and respected. We use a 5-scale tag to be able to monitor a child's feelings to not only prevent escalating crises, but also celebrate when the child is feeling happy. By wearing and using the 5-scale tag, the staff become aware of early warning, increased agitation, and child behavior. By assessments, early assessments, how they are feeling can avoid getting into power struggles. Visuals like the 5 scales is very important to our work. The teachers often reinforce conversations by simultaneously drawing stick figures that help the child visualize concepts. Likewise, they use key sign language, words such as stop, wait, and listen. Students also know how to say thank you, a gesture often shared with Jerry every time they leave the farm. The Creek students are have scattered strengths and need project-based learning. Lessons are purposely prepared to pre-teach, teach, and review. In the garden, lessons end by sharing what do you know, what you learned, and what you want to learn. The students use calendars and checklists to help plan the next lesson using these tools and address the students' difficulty to sequence and organize tasks. So at this point, I would like to turn it over to Skylar, who's going to share some of the wonderful dynamics that we've seen with 3 of our students.
Hi, I'm Skylar Dinsdale. I teach the gardening program here at Game Creek School. And this is GD. GD is a 15-year-old student with emotional and intellectual disabilities. His past language scores are very weak auditory processing skills. He really needs visuals and context to support attention. In the past, GD has been easily frustrated by academic work and, in general, any instruction directed at the entire group. Frustrations very often led to violent behaviors ranging from screaming and threatening to tearing up classrooms and violence directed towards staff and school facilities. Many times, the behaviors resulted in GD frequently going to our in-school time, or ISTO, or just going home early. GD began working with Jerry Hunter and the Multnomah Crops program last spring. we've really seen him blossom with a more hands-on functional approach, given purpose and focus for working with his hands and with the goal of working outdoors as an adult. Since getting involved in the program in the Creek School Gardens, his behaviors have decreased greatly. He has only been to ISTO one time the entire year. That's a huge, huge change. He is now able to ask to take a break appropriately, and he is more resilient during academic work. In addition, GD has become a mentor to other students in his class, an idea that seemed far out of reach last year. He has shown an increase in positive and appropriate social behaviors, and he is able to sustain eye contact as opposed to staring at his feet for a substantial portion of any given conversation. He demonstrates a tremendous amount of pride and accomplishment when discussing his work in the garden. He even walks taller. Next slide, please. This is TB. TB is a 16-year-old student with Tourette's, a communication fluency disorder, and ADHD. In the classroom, TB is highly impulsive, oppositional, and easily frustrated by academic work. He exhibits high anxiety around academic performance, meeting new people, and change in general. He would often display these anxieties and frustrations by swearing, yelling, arguing with teachers, setting up and antagonizing his peers, and walking out of the classroom or completely shutting down. However, once we began the garden program, we began to see improvements in many of these areas. TB was very eager to work in the garden to show off what he knew about growing vegetables. He was able to do the math and research required as it applied to planning and caring for the garden. In addition, he was able to carry out a multi-step, thoughtful scientific investigation with very little help studying pH and its effects on plant growth. TB also used the garden as a place to regain his composure after having blown out in the classroom. It became one of his coping skills to deal with frustration. A dramatic decrease in the amount of time he required to get himself back together, and perhaps more importantly, we saw an increased willingness on his part to talk about his frustrations in a meeting. In addition, TB had fewer outbursts and blowouts in the classroom by a substantial margin. And lastly, not leastly, we come to DB. DB is a 15-year-old student on the autism spectrum. He is functioning and verbal, although he struggles to connect with peers. He is often withdrawn from peers and can have difficulty maintaining conversations with them. He refuses to participate in PE and insists he doesn't know how to do any of the physical activities. In the garden, Decius is eager and one of the hardest, most dedicated workers at Burlingame, our middle school and high school program. He spends 2 to 3 days a week weeding and caretaking his bed and the paths in between. He never refuses any task, even difficult ones, glamorous ones. This is vigorous work. We have a serious Canadian thistle problem, which, if anybody knows, is just horrible. And it requires substantial physical effort. In this way, Decius is able to participate and be successful in physical education. Though he is still cautious, DB shows more confidence in himself and pride in the work he accomplishes each week. He also interacts with peers and will choose to go to the garden with a peer to work during his earned breaks. In general, at the school, we've seen that the garden has created a sense of cohesion throughout the student body by centering on a common goal. Students, for the most part, participate appropriately both socially and academically. They help each other weed, plant, water, measure, and monitor their beds. And I think what we've learned, or what I have learned in particular this year, is the therapeutic value of the garden.
The next slide, or no, this slide's perfect. So this slide is basically just kind of reviewing what we have learned and just highlighting some of what Skylar has shared with about the students. So one of the most important things that we've been taught by Tanya is we have to think about thinking, because what makes sense to these students is different than what how other people have learned. The most important part, maybe Skylar can expand upon this, is pre-teach teach, review, and repeat. And that repetitive message is very important with these students. The other thing is, like I said, physical activity is rewarding, and basically they learn by doing. And the gardens have just such a positive life and leadership skills. I know with GB, he's actually become a peer leader out there in the garden, and this is really significant to see where he's come from a year ago. And I think the most part is that the area is just a highlight for the staff to go out and work with these students in the garden every day. Although we're out there probably twice a week with most of the students. Is that true, Skylar?
2 times a week with, I would say, about 90% of students. 1 day a week we get the entire school out there. And it's necessarily a first march into participating. But what we've seen is if we bring them out there, while they're resistant at first, they eventually relent and start participating in activities that they wouldn't otherwise consider even an option for themselves.
I think that one of the benefits that we've all observed on both campuses has been that we originally started working with our students in the gardens based on if they were appropriate behaviorally, they could then go work in the garden. What we found, and we learned this within just a few months of starting this last year, was that the gardens themselves became the behavioral, they in themselves caused a lessening of the negative behaviors and raised the positive behaviors. So instead of using it as a reward, the gardens then became the way that we helped handle the behavior. So it was a different way of thinking for us.
So with that, move on to the next slide, just some closing comments in regards to the work that we're doing here in Portland. So I think one of the things that from the work that I've done with Farm to School around the state, I think what really stood out for me in this particular program is that we engage school psychologists, speech therapists, and other special ed professionals into the program. And so I would just, in closing, encourage you to reach out to these people and get them engaged in being able to help you learn and how to work with the students out in the garden. The other thing is that to advocate for statewide school garden programs and policies on the state level to include education school service districts. We passed a significant bill here in Oregon for $4.5 million to support the Farm to School and School Garden program. And little I know from the work that I've done in the past that the law was written as for school districts. And what we learned when the rules came out that education school districts is a different entity than school districts. And because we did not include education school districts in the law, we were not able to take advantage of those funds directly. We could do it through foundations or not other nonprofits, but it was really a lesson on how we need to talk about these programs as school and education service districts. Then last, I just want to mention, and Laura reinforced where this document is, we have a document that we've given Slow Foods on being able to expand more about how to work with children with emotional and health needs, and whether they're ADD or autistic or other different types of diagnosis. So feel free to follow up and take a look at those resources. I think you'll find them very intriguing on how to think differently of working with these children in the garden. So with that, Lauren, I'm going to give it back to you, and we can open it up for questions.
Thank you so much, Suzanne, Joni, and Skylar. That was a really comprehensive and fascinating presentation. We really appreciate you guys taking time to share this with everyone. We can now open it up to Q&A. If folks could use the chat function on your webinar control panel, I will go ahead and moderate the Q&A session. If you'd like to contact Suzanne, she's the point person for the Creek School Garden team. Her email address is there, and as well as Andy and my email is there as well if you'd like to reach out to Slow Food USA for more school garden resources. So yeah, we just have some questions.
I think we can just reduce it, and then we should be able to see.
It looks like we have a question from Brianne. She's asking, how do you work with students to express their violent behavior in the garden by damaging the garden itself?
We have not had students damage the garden itself. We really work with students on pre-teaching on what the expectations are before we're out, and we really gauge to see which students, if they're in an escalated, which would be what this question is, the escalated behavior, we would not be taking them outside. We would be waiting until they had been able to problem solve and work through whatever it was that caused the escalation before we would go into the garden.
And Joni, if I can piggyback on that for a moment, I have had a couple of students go out and threaten the damage to the garden itself, but generally speaking, when they're reminded of the fact that the garden itself belongs to all of us, and that it's not just direct at me or at a staff member or the school itself, but it belongs to the whole. They will often pull back from that specific behavior.
Okay, it looks like I have another question here from Patricia. Do you have any examples for specific activities that the students participate in? Also, can you share examples of experiences with younger school-aged children?
Yes to both of those. I'll start with what you were doing.
Sure. So we are right now finishing an experiment on we sprouted some beans, and we've been watering them at pHs, acidity and alkalinity, in order to see what which pH grows the best. We're also doing creating their own pest management handbook, and we're sort of focusing on the metro area master gardeners approach to that, which starts with cultural controls and physical controls, and then eventually biological and chemical controls, with the whole design being the least impact fire to manage the pest. Other than that, we did some lessons on calculating the area of the garden, but we went out and measured all of the beds, and a team of students calculated their own area, and then we took an average. We had to take different types of apps, but all focused again on the garden itself.
In regards to the younger students at the Rata Creek campus, we started the students, we recycle and compost, and everyone participated in that. But we also, things that are very simple for the younger students include things like planting garlic, watching different onions grow, something that during the school year can crop, or that can be growing, so that students can see it during the school year. As you know, this summer is the main plant time for it. So what we're doing now is we came up with an irrigation system so that students can plant things now that they will, when they come back to school, see how far the plants have grown. So we're working on that as well. We also have a greenhouse that was donated to us that we are real excited about that we are using. So that's some of the ways we've had the younger students involved. Of course, the amount that they're able to do is a little different from what my high school kids can do. But, they love going out into the garden.
Okay, that's great. And just a reminder to everyone, if you could please mute yourself, either if you're on cell phone or using your computer, just to reduce noise and we can hear the visitors. Looks like we have another question from Emily. Do you have a calm down area garden for students who walk outside? If so, can you please describe?
We have a lot of calm down areas. Students came to us with escalated and mental health challenges. And so we have areas both inside the schools as well as outside. The kids are welcome to, with staff, use the garden as an area that they can either sit and just take a break. That's what we call taking a break. And that has worked out very nicely. The gardens both are beautiful, and there's benches at both sides. So it's it depends on the student where they want to take the break out.
Okay, great, thank you. Sarah is asking the question, can you comment on having students work together that is facilitating work? This is especially necessary for my work with schools since I work with an entire class, up to 15 special education students at one time. And there's also a question that's following up to that one from Minnie. She's asking about working with 18 kids, all of whom are currently living in poverty and that all have behavioral, mental, and emotional challenges, and are English language second language learners. So do you have any ideas for successful independent groups? So kind of a two-part question about working groups.
So I'd love to see the question where I can see it visually, or anyway I can see that because that's kind of a long question. We do have ELL students. We do have all of that she described. Our classrooms have 12 students, 10 to 12 students per classroom, all with those high level of needs. I would also suggest for the teacher that mentioned this, is herself with the 15 students, maybe incorporating some volunteers during that time to help her, because that is a large number of students to have on your own. And we really do try to maximize our volunteers as well as our staff. So it's not uncommon for some of us who have a little bit of extra time to go out during the gardening time or help out in the classroom and the students are out there, just to give that extra support.
I also, piggybacking on the pre-teach, teach, review, and repeat piece, we cover very heavy at the garden session. We talk about how to carry tools. We talk about what each day for the team. And we reiterate all of these things throughout the course of the day that we're out there gardening. We also really hit up the community goal piece. What do we, as a group, want out of the garden, so that when we all come back together at the end of the day, we can turn around and look at exactly what we've done and share a moment of self-congratulation. Particularly at our site, in terms of independent groups, weeding is fantastic because there's virtually no rule than to pull the plant out of the ground and make sure it gets delivered to the right rubbish pile. So particularly with high energy groups that need much more kinesthetic movement and a little bit less action, weeding is a fantastic activity. Trash collecting, contests around those activities have been really motivational. Like, I bet your team can't get as many weeds as this team of volunteers can, and that sort of sets the anti-fun aspect of weeding out and makes it more
Fun.
Team.
playing,
Building.
more playing with each other. And for maybe they're a little escalated, but still within the realm of safety, taking one of those tools and being able to jacket some weeds is really a great way for them to bring themselves down out of the otherwise aggressive state. So.
That's really helpful. Thank you. We have two questions here related to the food that's grown in the garden. Zeno was asking if there's a part of slow food curriculum that could work well. And I'll just make a quick comment that Slow Food has published the first volume of our Good, Clean, and Fair school garden curriculum. And Good is all about sensory and taste education, as well as kitchen skills and tools. And it might be possible that our lessons around taste education, getting kids to try different foods and understand their palate, have a pretty sensory experience, could be fitting. That's related to Amy's question of, do you find that the students getting excited about the food that's grown in the garden, or is it the task involved in the garden, and are they willing to try the food?
I found the students are very willing to try the food. They don't necessarily discover they like it after they've tried it. I had a student who was very excited about his bunch of radishes that he pulled last week, and he pulled out about 12 of them. We got him to take a bite out of one and said, "Mr. Dinsdale, I don't think I like radishes." But for the student to even the food was a huge success. And we were able to then open the conversation. Well, vegetables are good by themselves, are better together, and be like a salad or a casserole, or so it definitely opens the conversation, talking about healthy food, and also when it comes to planning their own gardens, like, do you want to, in terms of efficiency, do you want to spend your time putting energy into things you don't grow or that you do not like, versus do you want to grow a bunch because that's what you so in terms of sustainability, in terms of efficiency, there's a number of ways the conversation can go, but pulling the food out of the garden and the excitement really inspires them to have those conversations.
Are you doing any deliberate taste activities with the kids, or is it more of a casual, they pick what they grow and try it?
You mean like cooking type activities?
Yeah, cooking, or even just tasting of raw ingredients.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And then also we have at the Errata Creek School site, it is only 3 blocks from the Multnomah County farm site. So students have gone there and have tasted different crops that our partner, Multnomah County farmer Jerry Hunter, has grown for service organizations. Mr. Dinsdale mentioned a student, GD, who he was first student that he has been in our school for quite a while. That student worked also last summer with Mr. Hunter and was able to take home several bags of groceries home to his family every time he worked. The image of that was that food was essential for his family. And a great deal to that student who's 15 to be able to help his family provide food. As you already heard, 92% of my students have low social and economic status for the money that's their families, and that's our free and reduced lunch rate. And so it means that great kids are able to be able to not only grow food, but able to consume it as well.
great. Thank you. Comment from Alicia commenting on the common areas and how, in her case, the urban garden is the place for students that need a minute. The students walk directly to the lab and I think quickly pull themselves back together to rejoin the class. So that's a very good comment. Thank you. We have a question from education side. Do you have a working volunteer program where community members, college students, adults, or high school students can support your garden program? And then, if so, how do you train them prepared to support your classes?
It's a good idea.
So
Do you want to?
yeah.
And Suzanne's going to take that one.
So, I mean, truly a mentor and an angel that has come into our life is Jerry Hunter, and he's very passionate at working with kids at risk. Has worked for a within a youth detention program. So I think that he is very mindful of how to tell volunteers to be gentle, to be inquisitive with the kids, being able to show them how to kind of encourage them to explore and be curious. The other thing that I think has been just a huge bonus is some of the volunteers were actually special ed students when they were in their youth, and they have brought such a great gift to garden because they clearly can relate and understand some of the challenges that these kids have. So I would encourage you to look and kind of research your own community where these type of volunteers that are working with these kids are and might be able to stay in working with you in the garden.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from people at this time? Looks like there's from Emily. Have you ever trained older students to work with younger students?
Absolutely. That has been a great form of mentorship for older students at school because, as was already mentioned, when you have larger groups in a classroom, the teacher needs extra support. My older kids have been amazing with youngers and worked well with the littles. They been great at, and to be really honest, kind of what Susan was piggybacking on, when you have older kids in special education, they have a true understanding of the challenges that little ones go through. One of the things that Gage has done, one of our older students, has been working with the younger class, our kindergarten, first, second, third graders. His sense has been that, I remember when he was that age and how hard that was. It has been wonderful how he has been able to be kind, patient, and gentle with our younger students. So we have definitely used the older students to support the young ones. Very good question.
Thanks, Joni. That's very encouraging. Well, if we don't have any more questions at this time, I'll just show you guys quickly where you can find the additional resources that Suzanne was talking about on our website. You'll bear with me for a moment. Okay, so if you go to our website, gardens.slowfoodusa.org, under resources, the bar on top, and go down to monthly webinars. It's on our monthly webinars page, and it's right under the May 2016 webinar description, called School Gardens, Behavioral and Mental Health Challenges Webinar Resources. And I'm sorry that the interconnection is a little slow. I think the meeting is catching up with what I'm trying to show you. It's there if anyone has more interest in this topic and wants to, oh yeah, it looks like it just came up. Okay, so it's right here, access additional resources on this topic. So I'm going to make sure that's loaded up. Might not be working at this very moment, but after the webinar, I'll get that up there. Thank you all for the presenters. It was a really wonderful topic to discuss. I think a lot of interest within school garden world, and we just appreciate your time, you sharing your story. Everyone feel free to reach out to Suzanne or Slow Food if you have more questions. Okay, thank you everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.